it's been a long time since I told the story of RCA and how it started and where we are now. And so I really wanted to take this moment to talk about that and talk about the future as well. So before I start, I just read this quote, which given what I'm going to say, is really appropriate. So Esther 4:14 says, "Perhaps you were born for such a time as this." And I think that's something which we all need to reflect on, that God has a perfect plan and a perfect timing for everything. We just don't happen to know what it is. Yes, I've been introduced. I am a co-founder and chair of Resurrection, and I have played many roles at RCA. I've been administrator, principal, science teacher, maths teacher, swimming coach, and many other things as well. Supported always by my trusted friend, sister in Christ, and co-founder, Ms. Bromwell, without whom none of this would have been possible. And tonight, the RCA Gala has always been our most important fundraising event. We do it on an annual basis, but it's more than that. It's an evening when we stop for a moment. We enjoy good food, we enjoy good company, but the key is to reflect on why we're here at all, how God has brought us here. And to that end, I'm going to ask you to indulge me a little. Some of you do know the history of RCA, but there are others who do not. And history is important because it grounds us. It's a map of the past, and it creates a foundation for our collective memory. And for RCA, our very essence is rooted in where we began. There are people today who doubt that God speaks. There are many who doubt that God still works miracles. There are those who say, well, that was all Bible time and it doesn't happen today. But the story of RCA is one that demonstrates that God is still speaking today in 2023 and that He is still working miracles. Sadly, some of those miracles come through fire. And that is what it took to bring RCA into being. 1 Peter 1:5 says, God is keeping careful watch over us and the future. The day is coming when you'll have it all, life healed and whole. But not yet. 1 Peter 1:7 says, pure gold put in the fire comes out of it proved pure. Genuine faith put through this suffering comes out proved genuine. When Jesus wraps this all up, it is your faith, not gold, that God will have on display as evidence of His victory. And the seed, with that in mind, the seed for RCA began long before 2011. In fact, it began with a prophecy from the pulpit to me. And it wasn't one I wanted. My then pastor was teaching on Matthew 6:19 to 21. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. And to understand a bit, I am obviously English. I have an Anglican background. I was in a Baptist church, and I've heard that sermon many times. But then what happened next really shocked me, and for me is kind of the beginning of this story. It was a very large church, and Pastor Pawolke, I felt that he looked across the congregation and locked eyes with me. And he said, parents, do not make your children your treasures. They are God's children and on loan to you only for as long as God allows. And it was though the cold hand of fear just wrapped around my heart. And I was afraid because I knew without a shadow of a doubt, my children were my treasure. In 2008, it was as though I was put on the edge of a tornado and progressively sucked into the darkness. The first thing that happened was my sister-in-law and her family, who'd gone to Mozambique as missionaries, had to return in haste when their youngest son developed liver cancer. And I saw firsthand the fear of a parent for their child. My daughter and I, Isabel, were springboard and tower divers. And needless to say, she was infinitely better than me. But one evening, I dove into a pool and my eardrum burst inwards, taking with it the hearing of my left ear. So I wasn't feeling so great. Then my father went into hospital and got a superbug and broke his hip on the way to the bathroom, and he never came home. And I felt like I'd gone through my trinity of challenges and was really clinging to the fact that God is great, that He is in control, and that He has a plan. And to be honest, I was also thinking, okay, bad things happen in threes and I'm done. But then, on June 16, 2009, my deepest fears were realized. Still can't do without crying. When my daughter Isabel was taken from me in an entirely stupid and preventable event. And my daughter and I were never separated, except at school, when she was at school. And she was gone in a heartbeat. And it was as though a golden door just slammed in my face, and I was on the other side. What was left of my family and I, we fled to our home in Nova Scotia for the summer, where my husband and I attempted to provide a measure of stability for our two boys. But you know, the earth keeps circling and time keeps passing, and we had to come back. So the boys could go back to school. And it was at that moment that God spoke for the first time in this story into the heart of Lisa Bromwell. And I didn't know Lisa. I met her twice. She was the mother of Isabel's friend Tate. But she called me and she said, I don't know what I can do to help, but God has put it on my heart to reach out to you. And she came for coffee, and we sat on my sofa and we cried. And she came for more coffee and we cried. There was a lot of coffee and a lot of crying. And we became really firm friends, and she really walked me through some really, really, really dark times. But our sorrows were not over. On January the 1st, 2010, Lisa's mom died, again quite unexpectedly, and our relationship pivoted as she was the one reeling with raw, new grief. Much more coffee, many, many more tears. But we were united by faith, by grief, and by the surety that we were left behind because God had a purpose for us. Our job was not finished, we just didn't know what it was. And we spent a lot of time, we got closer, so that was 2010, and it wasn't until 2011, April 14th, so this is the anniversary, when God gave me my purpose. My youngest son, Theo, was at Prestwick Christian Academy, which is where Isabel had gone for her elementary school, which was pivotal to her faith journey, and really meant that I knew for sure where she was. I mean, completely, 100% sure. And, but Theo was graduating. He was going to Ridley, and I thought that all my volunteering hours would be up in Ridley. So the school had been sending letters saying, school's in trouble, we're going, you know, we're trying to rally. And I'd just been ignoring them, completely ignoring them. And then the final letter came, and I was sitting outside. It was a day like this, beautiful sunny day, and I'd built an angel garden for Isabel, and I was thinking of planning the next stage of the garden. And I was just sitting on the rocks, looking at the earth, and it was almost as though he physically pushed me and said, go now. There you go. Okay. I told you we could still do like that. God clearly had other plans, and he spoke for the second time. And it was like he just placed the name of the school, the motto, and the calling to go. And so I did. And, you know, for an English Anglican, the idea of telling anybody that I felt God was calling me was so out of my comfort zone. You have no idea. I mean, for those of you who know English people, you don't talk about your faith in public. It's like airing your dirty laundry. So for me, and I had never spoken publicly in my life, so it was all very nervous-wracking. But, and I talked to my friends, I talked to my family, and I said, well, it's really strange, but I think that God's calling me to start a school. And they all said, great idea, in a year. You have no money, you have no students, you have nothing. And I said, well, I really feel like he wants this school, these kids, these teachers. Now, it's my school, not your school. And so then I called Lisa, and I told her, and she said, I'm in. That was it. I'm in. And that was the first of many miracles. We called the teachers, and 5 teachers committed to stay on, which I think is miracle number 2. We called Mr. Willis and told him, and he said, well, you're crazy, but I will support you. We called the parents, and most of the parents, to be honest, had already enrolled their kids somewhere else. So there was Lisa and I, standing there, 2 women who, I have a very eclectic career path, but, and Lisa has been, you know, a banker and mother, and my main job was being a mom, so not a lot of educational experience between us. And we stood there and we made a presentation to these parents, and the human questions came. Okay, so how many kids do you need to make this school to mean that you'll go ahead? And to be honest, I just picked a number out of my hat. 35. Okay, how many years will you stay? Same thing. 5 years. And at the end of that presentation, the parents of 34 children had committed to send their children to a school that didn't exist, and that was going to be led by 2 women who didn't have any experience except a calling. And then at the end, Mr. Slack, way over there, said, my daughter Laura will be child number 35. So there's miracle number 3. So with the name of the school, the motto, 5 teachers, 35 students, and 140 days until September 6th, when we plan to open. Lisa and I went to Nova Scotia to pray for direction with regards to the structure of this school. Mission and vision. We really sought direction for what it was supposed to look like. I mean, how do you even do that? But God blessed us. We're moms. We knew exactly what kind of, if we were to start all over again, we knew exactly what we wanted for our children. We wanted a small school where every teacher knows the name of every child in the school. We wanted a school where every child knew with confidence that they are individually and perfectly created in the image of God. We wanted a school where the teachers spent time with each child to find out what their individual gifting was. Because not every child is academic. Some children, their greatest gift is that they have a really beautiful smile. And that is their gift. And so we wanted to be able to encourage them, to endorse them as who they were, to give them a feeling of confidence before they left grade 8. Beyond that, we wanted a school that taught the kids to give back to others. A school that was accessible to families of all demographics, irrespective of their finances. A school that teaches children to rise up in Christian leadership in a fallen world. And with the support of Rick and the church, we worked through the summer, and we opened on September 6th, registered with the CRA with a business number, a registered charity, 5 teachers, and 48 students. So that would be miracle number 4. Those first years were a whirlwind. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7-day-a-week work weeks. But the school just oozed joy. And I think part of the proof of that is that we have a number of our original students sitting with us here tonight. It was amazing. It was hard work. And but the students, sometimes, okay, you guys may say this is a bit of a stretch, but there were times when they didn't actually want to go home. They just wanted to stay and hang out, which we felt good about. And we had just such a fabulous teaching staff. It was truly, it was like walking in a miracle every single day. And 5 years came and went. Students graduated, new ones came. And at the end of 5 years, it was obvious that RCA still needed Lisa and I steering the ship, but we started bringing people in to fill some of our roles, started parceling out the jobs, because throughout all of this, God was crystal clear that it was never supposed to be Sue and Lisa's school. We are merely God's instruments as He built His school. And I can honestly say that it has been one of the greatest gifts of my life to have the opportunity to teach and work and interact with the RCA community. And then COVID hit. Before the world lockdown had even been uttered, the RCA board had met and agreed to purchase Chromebooks for all the students to use. Before March break was even over, we had the school ready to roll out online. The teachers were fantastic. They stepped up to the plate and created new curriculum that could be taught online. They began to use the Google suite of programs for communication, homeworks, and assignments. It was just such an amazing response, and I am so humbled and proud of our teachers and their ability to just turn on a dime. And the students really, really did well through it as well. We all know the rest of the story. The world locked down again, and again, and again. And fear started stalking communities, and RCA was no exception. What had been new and somewhat easy to overcome during the first lockdown became old very quickly. We put in precautions to bring students back into class, and I'm really happy and proud to say that the RCA students did not suffer academically in the way that others did. They did really, really well. But as the pandemic rolled on, we all lived through it, and we knew that our children were not academically being impacted negatively, but on those other subliminal areas, communication, being in community. And they didn't really understand what the heck was going on and what was provoking this whole new reality. In the middle of this, I personally moved to Nova Scotia. And I have to admit that 10 years of continual stress and voluntary basis had left me tired and needed some relief. But I didn't get much relief. In January 2022, I took a 10-month sabbatical to spend time with my family, and in prayers I sought God's direction for this next part of my journey. Since leaving Ontario, I work with the Samaritan's Purse Disaster and Assistance Rescue Team. They deployed me to Albania to help with the Afghan refugees. They deployed me to Ukraine to help with the war effort. And I really thought that was where my life was going. And then, last October, Lisa called me and said, "Hey Sue, how do you want to go back on the board?" So, October rolled around and I came back on the board. And I really feel that this is really, it's amazing how God works, that, you may have an idea of what you think you're supposed to be doing, and He may have a completely different idea. So, during the 10 months I was away, the RCA leadership had great plans for the school future. There was a movement to grow the school into a bigger, shinier, more prestigious school. But coming back 10 months later, it was really obvious that that's not what our children need. Our children need the small, loving, safe community we started with. They need to heal from the wounds incurred during the pandemic. They need the safety of the original RCA, the small school, large family. And for that reason, the RCA board has recently made some changes, and we are looking to the future with great excitement. For the first time in 6 months, I have to say I feel completely at peace with where RCA is going. It is going back to small school, large family. It's going back to that situation where every child knows that their teachers are there for them, they're listening to them. Not that that didn't happen. It's just that, COVID has kind of fractured things. We need to bring it back. We need to give them a safe space. There was way too much online material. We need to bring it back, make them feel safe. And we now have the strongest board ever, and we are growing. We recently had Joyce Sue come onto our board. She is our treasurer, and of course, Lady Lisa. But she's not here, so that's coming. Jody Hannah, where is Jody Hannah? So, some of you who are donors may have received a call from Jody, because it's not just the kids who had a tough time during the pandemic. We know that some of our donors have sort of got a bit lost along the way, and we want them to know that we love them, we appreciate them, and we want you to feel part of our community. Jody is also going to be building a team of prayer nannies, which Isabel Cherry, you would remember. So Mrs. Cherry was a prayer nanny for Creswick Christian Academy many, many years ago. So we're piggybacking off that. And, you know, this will give a group of women strong, not necessarily women, sorry, whomever Jody brings, but a strong team of people to pray for our kids, to pray for our classes, to go into the classes and say, are you okay? What can I do? What can I pray for? You know, even if it's somebody whose cats run away, kids need to know that the little things that are important to them are important to us too. So, what else? We will focus on our strengths. And what is our greatest strength? What has always been our greatest strength? We are a family. And students can walk in the door and know that they're safe and in their home, away from home. I think that, for me, I feel like God has spoken again. He's given us peace, that this is really the direction He wants us to take. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." And on that note, thank you all for your patience. I will close. And thank you for all for coming and supporting our small school, large family. I pray that you'll continue to support us as we work to really recreate a haven for our children in which they can live, learn, and thrive bathed in the love of God.